Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today is February 25th, 2025. We've got 3 days in a row where we're actually going to be in the low 70s. And I think in about a week we get another freezing night. But in the meantime, I want to get some more seed starting going. Even though the other day I said I wasn't going to do any more for a little while, I started looking at the calendar and I realized that I really want to get my pepper seeds going. Not that I'm expecting a whole lot of activity on them over the next couple of weeks, but I'd like to at least get them in contact with some moisture so that when they do break, if the weather's slightly warm enough, they'll at least start growing off. And I've done this the last few years. This is a great time for me to start my peppers because that usually puts them in a position to go out to the garden around mid-April, late April, assuming we don't have any frost around that time. I'm going to do 2 varieties. YOLO Wonder, it's a bell pepper. Grew it last year for the first time. Good enough results, and I saved a ton of seed from it, so I'm going to roll with them again this year. And Poblano. Poblano I did not grow last year. I grew it the year before and the year before that. So the seed that I have is saved from the 2023 year. And I don't know. I didn't try actually starting any of them last year, so I don't know if the seed's viable or not. I've saved pepper seeds in the past, and I've always had good success doing it, so I'm fully expecting it to be viable. That's another reason that it's always good to start a little earlier, because if you do have bad seed, you know ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and get some sifted compost, and I'll meet you back in the shed. I have 2 web flats here, and you'll notice I have kind of a mishmash of cell packs. I've got these that are typically 804s and 1204s, but I don't have enough 1204s to fill these out. So this layout will give me 40 cells for each of these trays, and I'm going to sow 2 cells per each tray, per each cell. So that'll give me 80 seeds and 80 seeds. And if I can get germination of anywhere between 50 and 75%, I'd be happy. Because for me, 40 plants will fill one bed pretty much perfectly at a 1 foot distance between them. And I do this pretty much every year with my peppers. You see my bed sizes outside. They're about, anywhere between 30 and 36 inches wide. I'll find the center point. I'll go 6 inches off center and do a row of peppers. So 2 rows per each bed and about a foot space. The beds are about anywhere between 20 and 23 feet in length. I can fit 40 plants in there really well. I might do a slight offset to where I have, pepper plant a foot, and then this one I start 6 inches off, so I've got 6 inches off the line, or I'll do them side by side. It doesn't really seem to make a difference for what I do. They just grow big plants and throw off big food, and that's what I'm happy with. So I will get these all filled up, and once it's done, we'll get sowing. So through the power of YouTube magic, and just like that, they're filled up. Now, we've discussed it before briefly. I basically just use homemade compost as my seed starting mix. It is sifted through a 1/4 inch hardware cloth or hardware wire that I put between furring strips. And I basically just go out to my compost pile, I throw the compost on, and I shake it until as it falls through into a container that I have. And that's all I use for seed starting. It's pretty low cost, no cost, and it seems to get the job done well enough. I would never recommend this as a commercial blend for somebody who wants to get into the propagation game for selling. I'm probably taking on risk from a disease standpoint, but for my purposes, this has worked well every year. I would be very surprised if I didn't get some kind of germination that was reasonable for what I need to do, which is grow a boatload of peppers for my fresh eating and for my freezer. And this has been my method for the last few years, and it's produced, so I roll with it. And if you ask, why do I need to, how many peppers am I looking to grow? Well, we're gonna start with YOLO Wonder, by the way. So this is my bell pepper. Last year, I grew probably somewhere between 30 plants of this variety, and they grew really well. And there were some days in the summertime, as things were really starting to take off, as the plant started going hard, I I was eating 3 bell peppers with my salad every day. I would just I don't wait for them to ripen to red because I'm impatient, and I also don't want anything to get to them while I'm, from a pest standpoint, while I'm trying to wait for them to ripen up. Occasionally some went red when I wasn't, when I couldn't stay on top of all of them, but I was typically just harvesting green. And I'm fine with that. No, they didn't taste quite as sweet as the reds, but honestly, I just wanted to get more and more food inside. And as a bit of a point of evidence, with the fact that I had some success last year, I'm still pulling peppers from my freezer. So this morning, my wife said, hey, we need strawberries from the freezer. So I went outside and I pulled a bag of strawberries. We store those in the freezer. They usually work out to about 4-pound bags. I still have plenty left. And I remembered as I was out there, I'm like, oh yeah, my pepper bag is about empty because I use peppers in my morning breakfast. And I pulled a bag. It was 3 pounds. So basically, when these things start throwing like crazy, if they become far in excess of what I can keep up with fresh, I just start chopping them for the freezer. So I core them, and then I pop them in, I'd say I cut them roughly, 1/2-inch squares. And then I just throw them straight into a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. I typically weigh them out around 3 pounds of cut peppers per bag because I've noted that they flatten very easily at that size. When I throw more than that, they can have a tendency to be a little more difficult to zip closed. And they don't lay quite as flat. They wind up bowed out. But a 3-pound bag of peppers seems to hit the freezer perfectly. And I will do the same thing with the poblanos this year because poblanos I've grown in the past are usually a pretty sizable plant as well, or piece of food. The peppers are pretty good size, so I'll probably just do the same thing with them this year. And hopefully I have enough freezer space for all that. We have 4 freezers outside, 3 freezers outside, 1 freezer inside, and then the freezer that's attached to the fridge. And I've got probably another 4 or 5 bags of peppers in the freezer right now from last year's harvest. And I've probably been through about at least as many. So I had a good year with peppers last year. It's a super great crop from the standpoint that it doesn't take much time for me to harvest it and to prepare it for a meal, and it pretty much goes into any savory meal. I got so many of these seeds. Man, I'll be super thrilled if they actually do germinate, which they should. I was very happy with the way they were saved out last year. So now we're going to get these guys covered. This potting mix compost isn't as damp as I would typically have it right now, but it'll water in fine. I'm not worried about that. And what's going to happen is, as they germinate, when the plant gets strong, past the cotyledon stage, when we're starting to get some true leaves, what I'll do is every cell pack that has 2 germinations, as opposed to just 1 or 0, I'll go ahead and pop the cube out. I'll break it down entirely to make sure that I'm being very careful with the root. And I'll go ahead and separate them out and transplant them in any gaps that I have within this tray first. And then if I have excess beyond that, I'll go ahead and start a second tray with the leftovers, assuming the plant's healthy. And that is YOLO Wonder. So if you are a pepper grower, please comment below and let me know what varieties you're growing this year. Are you a bell pepper fan? Is there a different sweet pepper you like? Are you a hot pepper fan? Do you try to grow in massive volumes the way I'm doing? I mean, in my family, between me and my wife, I'm the only one who really eats the peppers. So yeah, legitimately, I'm looking for 80 pepper plants to support my habit. Because the only time she really gets into the peppers, she'll hit them a little bit when they're fresh, but the frozen ones coming out of the freezer, that's all me. She'll, if I make a pasta sauce, I'll add that to it. But other than that, the peppers are my food. these seeds, you can see by the color, some of these don't look as fresh as some of the other, as the YOLO Wonders. They look really clean. These don't look quite as clean, so I'll be a little more cautious with which ones I'm picking out of my hand. So we're gonna go 2x out of these as well. Like I said, I'll have to pick the careful ones. If you haven't grown poblanos before, I would really recommend it. I think it's a pretty fantastic pepper. Like I said, I like the fact that it's nice and large, so you don't have to spend a whole lot of time chopping it up, being really careful, like some of the smaller hot peppers. It's not that hot, obviously. I'm going to put a few more than 2 in this because I don't like some of these seeds, and I can't really seem to pick cleanly out of these. What I'm going to do after I'm finished sowing these is I'm going to take them, I'm going to water them in, and then I'm going to put them on heat mats out here under cover in my little section that I have with a, I have no south-facing windows on my property other than the 2 that are, that the kitchen sink is on. Yeah, no south-facing windows, so I have no good way to climate control seed starting. So I have to rely on my little area in my shed that I'm standing in right now. I put together a little platform table, and I have a shop light attached to it, and I have a sheet, an old fitted sheet that covers the whole thing, and a couple of heat mats in there. And it allows me to capture a little bit of heat and protect the seedlings from outside air. I say outside air, like frost and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to get these watered in, and then I'll show you how they're going to be stored. And once they are breaking their little sleep and they germinate up, I'll go ahead and post a follow-up video on there. It'll be a good record for me too, because I really want to do a good job of seeing dates I start, dates they germinate, dates they go out in the field, so that I can maybe plan better for next year, because I've been a little loose with my dates so far, and I think it's time for me to start tightening that up, and this is going to be a good video record of that. So I will see you all in just a couple of minutes once we're ready to show you what they look like under cover. And this, folks, is what it looks like. This is just a small little contraption I set up here in the corner of the shed. Piece of plywood, a couple of 2x4s run over top to hold up this shop light, which I'm not going to turn on at this point because they don't really need much. They don't need light at this point to germinate. Once I actually see them popping out, I'll get out here a couple times a day, turn it on, turn it off. I used to have it on a timer. That timer doesn't seem to be actually working anymore, so I may need to buy another one, or I may just make it part of my routine to come out here in the morning, turn the light on, come out here at night, turn it back off. So yeah, folks, that's it. My pepper plants are started for the season. Assuming we get good germination, I won't have to do much more at this point other than make sure they're watered in and get them outside once the temperatures are friendly enough to pepper plants, which again, as long as they're avoiding a freeze and frost, I can leave them out in, weather that gets down into the low 40s, and they do just fine. It's the practice I've been doing for a few years now, and I had nothing but reasonable success. So I think in about 3-4 weeks we should see some germination at that point. Pretty much they should be fully germinated in about 4 weeks, barring some weird weather. So when that happens, I will show you again, and hopefully 4 to 5 weeks after that we can get them out in the ground, and then maybe 8 weeks after that we can start eating. So until then, thanks for watching, take care, I'll see you in the next one.